It's all part of the same. Why would they require them?
Yeah.
I just, it just confounds me why. The same thing with thyroid. Women need thyroid hormone, I mean, need carbohydrates to have adequate thyroid hormone levels. I don't know where this is coming from. There were studies in the 80s that showed that when you put somebody on an 800 calorie diet, their T3 levels would go down. Well, sure, they're starving. You can't make, your body's going to not produce an active growth hormone, an activity hormone, a metabolic hormone if there's no metabolism, if there's no food in order for it to grow any tissue.
Mhm.
So it, I don't know where this is coming from. So I know the thyroid one is coming from that. And they're actually one of those studies, they saw that if you added more fat, the T3 levels would come back a lot faster. So
Mm.
it's just ludicrous. No, women do not need carbohydrates to make hormones. They're all made out of fat, Anthony.
Not that long ago, people had to do things intuitively. We had to be out
Hmm.
in the wild and just eating naturally. And what about that time period? And we didn't have bonbons back then. We didn't have, confectionery stores. We just had what we had available in the
Hmm.
wild. You would go and dig up some tubers or something like that, and something would have to tell you naturally to do that, which doesn't make sense.
No, it
And
didn't do that.
yeah,
It
exactly.
didn't do that. We evolved to eat the meat, and our bodies changed tremendously, and our health deteriorated tremendously from the advent of agriculture. We know that the obstetrical dilemma, women
Mm,
having babies, it was a lot more easier for women to give birth when we were hunter-gatherers than when since the advent of agriculture, when we started eating carbohydrates. Our hips changed, the shape changed.
oh, interesting.
So that is enough of a, and I talk about that in the new book.
Mm,
uh, it's actually called the obstetrical dilemma. Why do women die during childbirth? Why is it so difficult and painful? Because we started eating carbohydrates.
mm,
That humans have big heads because we have our huge brain, which we
mhm,
developed by eating meat and fat.
mhm,
So when we started eating carbohydrates, that didn't change,
mhm,
but the bone structure changed. The female bone
mhm.
structure changed.
And I
We're a lot
do,
shorter too. Sorry, we're a lot
yeah.
shorter too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and birth weights have gone up too, and that's the thing too. When you see gestational diabetes is associated with larger birth weights, and that's
Hmm.
going to come from carbohydrates as well. You have this sort of
Yeah.
precocious growth. It's not necessarily that their brains are bigger or more developed and that they're better. It's just that
Hmm.
they're inflated with insulin and carbohydrates. People trying to say that, like, well, yes, heads are getting bigger, the babies are getting bigger, and we're just evolving, we're getting bigger brains. Well, no, we're not. We have smaller brains on average since
Right.
before
Yeah,
agriculture.
definitely smaller.
Yeah, and so like 11% smaller for men, and I've found 17% smaller for women on average, and that was
Hmm.
immediately after agriculture, and that's persisted until today. And then in sort of in the last century, we've had higher birth weights, higher and higher birth weights. And they're saying, well, this is just we're evolving to get bigger. And like that's not how evolution works. This doesn't go that quick. Just in 100 years, slam, all these things change. It's some sort of environmental issue. And we're
Hmm.
abnormally growing these kids so that they have abnormally high birth weights. And now we have misshapen pelvis.
Yeah, well, it's also a lot of other, I mean, puberty is happening, what, 7 and 8? It used to happen
Yeah.
in 16, 18.
Mm,
All this because of carbohydrates.